Well, good morning, Northview. How you guys doing this morning? It is so good to see you. It's great to be joining with everybody who's watching online. We're glad you could connect with us as well. This is week number 4 of a series that we're calling For the One. If you've missed any of these previous weeks, I'd highly encourage you to check out on our website or on our YouTube channel the previous messages, as well as kind of the 10-minute vision video for the initiative that goes into more detail about the project that we're looking to tackle and kind of some of the heart motivations behind it. I won't go into detail on all of that again because we've said that and spoke to that several times in a row. But if you have missed it, be sure to go back and get it because it'll help make this conversation make more sense. We're in the middle of a conversation, getting ready to launch a generosity initiative as a church, a 2-year generosity initiative that's going to help transform ministry for us here as a church. We're excited about it. We've got some big stuff ahead, and nothing is bigger than this Wednesday, Advanced Commitment Night, 6:30 p.m. We're going to be on the turf. The whole service is on the turf. We've never done that before. We've never done anything like that. So it's going to be awesome. And I can honestly say that while we're doing weekly ministry and weekly gathering as a church, there are just certain services that have a little bit of extra weight to it. And they don't get repeated every week, every month, even every year. This is one of those services. We haven't done something like this for 6 years. And that one proved to be incredibly powerful. If you were here, you remember it. If you didn't, once it's over, it's over. You kind of miss it. So we want everybody to be a part of it. It is tied to this initiative and tied to being able to step out confidently into some commitments that we feel like God is calling us to. So that's kind of the purpose of the night, is those ready to make that early commitment to the initiative can do so. But I will say, if you're still thinking, praying, not quite sure where God is going to land you in this conversation, I don't want the fact that those commitments are being made and maybe you're not ready to make you feel like you shouldn't come. You absolutely should come and be a part of what God is doing here that night. It's going to be really, really special. Can't wait to see you guys this Wednesday at 6:30 on the turf. Now, we talk a lot around here about one more and how the right-sized church is one more. Well, I am excited to announce to you that we grew by one more this week when Miss Lucy had her little baby, Riley. Yeah, look at that. What a cutie. What a cutie. So Lucy and Riley are doing great. Caleb is doing great too, for everybody who's worried about Caleb. Everybody is at home and doing great. We're so excited for them. Lucy won't be around for a little bit, obviously, as she gets her feet under her as a new mother. And she'll be back here in time doing the same ministry that she's always done here for our kids and our families. But what a special gift Riley is. We're so excited to add her to the conversation of our church family and so excited for the Bakers. Really, really thrilled. Guys, 2 Corinthians 8 is where we're going to be today. So if you have a Bible, either a paper Bible or a Bible on your phone, 2 Corinthians 8 is where we're going to be. We've been in 2 Corinthians a lot these last several weeks. And so each week I've tried to give a little bit of context to kind of help make what we're reading fit into the right proper mindset. So let me give you a little bit more about what's going on before we read what we're going to read. Paul planted churches all over the place. I mean, he'd go into towns, he'd plant churches, appoint leaders, and then turn them loose, and then he'd go plant in another town and do the same. He would periodically check in on these churches. He would write letters to these churches to kind of shape their theology. Everything was fresh and new, so there was sometimes some corrective things that needed to happen. Corinthian church was absolutely one of those type churches. But one of the things he did was for about a 10-year period, he would take up a collection from some of these churches that he could then give to a specific church in Jerusalem. And the reason he did that is because life in Jerusalem for Christians was very, very hard. Not that it was necessarily easy for anybody anywhere, but life in Jerusalem for Christians was very hard, very hard. That's, of course, where so much the epicenter of Jesus' ministry and crucifixion, takes place. So very, very tough. Part of the reason it was so tough is because Christians got canceled in Jerusalem. And so it's very hard to have a job as a professing Christian in Jerusalem. Very hard to make a living as a professing Christian in Jerusalem. And so Paul would take up a collection so that some monies could be given to the church in Jerusalem because they struggled to make things happen because they just didn't have much, okay? So he's doing that, and he had at one point gotten the Corinthian church to say, hey, we're in on that. We're going to help with that. And then some time has transpired. There's been a little bit of a disconnect, both from Paul and also from their commitment to help these churches in Jerusalem. So Paul is going to write in 2 Corinthians to them about renewing the commitment that they had once made. They made it, they had good intentions, but things had kind of fallen through the cracks a little bit. You're going to also hear him talk about a third congregation, a congregation in Macedonia, and how that congregation really sets a bar for what he hopes this Corinthian church could try to do. And a key word in the text is completion. Completion. He's looking to see them complete something they had once committed to. And he's also looking to see them develop and to complete, be a more complete representation of a follower of Jesus. So he's kind of like saying in these words, you haven't flunked the test, but right now it's incomplete. So if I could, can I encourage you to take what you knew God was stirring in your heart to do and see it through? Here's what he says in verse 1. He says, brothers and sisters, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches. In the midst of a very severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. For I testify that they gave as much as they were able, and even beyond their ability. Entirely on their own, they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the Lord's people. They exceeded our expectations. They gave themselves, first of all, to the Lord, and then by the will of God, also to us. So we urge Titus, just as he had earlier made a beginning, to bring also to completion this act of grace on your part. So since you excel in everything, in faith and speech and knowledge and complete earnestness and in the love that we've kindled in you, see to it that you also excel in this grace of giving. As I said, completion was a theme in this text. And there's repeated themes, and wherever Paul would go, wherever he would establish churches, as he got churches moving down a path, there was often similar language. You can read different letters, and you'll hear him say very similar things to different churches. And among those words that get repeated frequently for Paul is the word sozo and the word teleos. Sozo and teleos. Sozo means to save. And so there's plenty of language about how Jesus came to save you in a way you could not save yourself, to do something for you that you couldn't fix, something you couldn't fix on your own. And he used the word sozo, to save. It means to be made whole. And it's a vivid word picture because it's like without Jesus coming in here and doing this, you would not be made whole. But now that he's saved you, now that he's made you whole, there is a journey that he wants you to complete. And there is a work in progress. There's a nature to the work he's doing in your life. That's where teleos would come in. And he would talk about being perfected. It doesn't mean never having a blemish. The idea of perfection in the New Testament Greek is mature. Having been saved, then there's a path of maturity that God wants to take you on. He would even say in Philippians chapter 1, verse 6 to that church, guys, I am confident that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. It's one of my favorite verses, I think, in the whole Bible. The promise that a God who saves us promises also to keep working on us to the point of completion, all the way to our last breath. I like to say it this way: if you're not dead, God's not done with you. There's always room for a next step. There's always room for growth. There's also always room for his work in your life. He's going to use, or he used in the passage we read, a form of teleos, where he said that I hope to bring to completion something that God has started in you. He's also trying to complete their view or their understanding of generosity. So he's going to motivate. He's going to speak to the motivations of generosity in both chapters 8 and chapter 9 pretty extensively. But the way he motivates in this section that we read is he motivates by painting the picture of a dead, broke, destitute church and their incredible generosity, and shows them that look what these guys did even though they had every permission almost and every pass in the world to not be able to do what they did. Their example, I will tell you personally, the Macedonian church example from 2 Corinthians 8 has taught me one of the most valuable lessons on generosity that I've ever learned. It's changed my mindset completely. And I think until you have this mindset, this whole conversation, it can be something that you feel like will come later down the road, but it's not something for you right now. But by illustrating that out of great poverty, a church set the bar for generosity, effectively what I learn, you learn, is that I will always be rich enough to be generous. There will never be a time that I have to have more in order to be generous. And there is really a temptation to think like that. There is a real temptation for us to think generosity is something I do later, or generosity is something when I can. Generosity is something when I have. These guys help us to see no matter where we are, no matter what stage of life we are in, no matter how much we have, we will always be rich enough to be generous. This Macedonian church he describes as being in extreme poverty. And the word that he uses for extreme poverty is a word that's used to describe something that's at the depth of the ocean. That's a great word picture, isn't it? You ever thought about your bank account and you're like, how low can this go? Theirs went to the depth of the ocean. He's like, it's as far down as you can go. When I talk about poverty, when I talk about didn't have anything, it was as far as you could imagine to the bottom of the ocean, literally the depths of poverty. Then he says they gave beyond their ability. Beyond their ability. In today's speak, we would say the math wasn't mathing. Like it didn't make sense what they were doing. In fact, you can also even a little bit hear in this description that Paul was maybe tempted to say to these guys, you know what? I've been going around to all these churches taking up a collection for the Jerusalem Christians. But you guys are so poor that I couldn't possibly make that request of you. But they pleaded with him, it says. The Macedonian church, when Paul came to take up, said, hold on. No. You're not going to take away the privilege of generosity from us. If this is what the Lord is needing in that community, we want to be a part of it. Don't take from us the privilege of being a part of it. Even though they were facing great famine and difficulty themselves, they realized even their severe trial couldn't take away the joy of generosity. The poverty was no barrier for them. Because they had given themselves completely to the Lord, they were free and they had overflowing joy. And because they had that joy, nothing could stop them from embracing a generosity mindset and helping us to see that the conversation about generosity doesn't start with the wallet. It starts with the heart. I think often we start the conversation at the wallet. And we start with, what do I have? How much can I? How much should I? Where is there room to spare? It's always a look inward at the heart. But what these guys show us is that their pattern was different. A better question to ask anytime an opportunity to be generous comes up is not how much do I have to be able to be generous, but who has my heart? Who has my heart? 2 Corinthians 8:5. I'll read it again, what we read earlier. It says, they, the Macedonians, they gave themselves first of all to the Lord, and then by the will of God to us also. This might be one of the most transformative pictures of how generosity in the heart of a follower needs to work. It starts with giving your heart first to the Lord. And we said a big emphasis of For the One was learning to live for the one who has died in our place. And to live not for ourselves, but for him who has called us. It's about first and foremost giving our hearts to the Lord. And in our giving our hearts to the Lord, we open our ears and our eyes to the mission that God has in the world that we live in today. Give ourselves first to the Lord, and then he says to us, or maybe said this way, then to the Lord's ministry. When you've surrendered everything there is everything you are to the Lord, it's easy to surrender a resource. It's easy to surrender and be generous when you've already said, I've given you everything. And everything includes generosity. Everything is everything. At the foundation of following Jesus is saying, I give you everything. You gave everything for me on the cross. I give everything for you. My life is yours. I live not for me now. I live for you. And the more you do that and you think like that, the mindset starts to shift and you realize that with whatever you have, whatever God's given you, you start to realize it was never his intention that everything I have be kept. Just because I've made money, just because I've received things, doesn't mean that God's intention for that was for me to keep it. I don't know about you guys, but at our house, we're like a 4 delivery a day Amazon house. Is anybody else in that? It used to be 4 times a week, and now I think it's 4 times a day. Like, stuff shows up with such frequency that we literally have no idea what's even showing up when it's showing up. Is this the stuff I ordered today? Is this the stuff I ordered 2 days ago? Is this the stuff I ordered last night? Oh, you ordered something. It's like Christmas morning every day at our house. There's always a stack of cardboard outside the back door. It's a complete disaster. But here's one of the things I love about this modern moment that we're in when it comes to shipping. We can track everything. You can track everything. And so even if it's not on Amazon, maybe it's somewhere else, isn't it like a joy when you make the purchase and then you get that email saying your package has been delivered to the post office by the seller? And you're like, okay, boom, we're in motion. Here we go. Here we go. Game on. They had a little bit of time after the sale, but now this thing, and then you get excited if it's in like Ohio or Kentucky to start instead of California or Arizona or New York, because then you know, oh man, I got to add at least an extra day on this wait to get this thing here. And sometimes you've ever seen a package and you're tracking it and it comes from the East Coast and it gets into the Midwest area, it's in St. Louis, it's in Ohio. What the heck? It went out to California. What in the world? And then it came back. Somebody got fired on that one. You see it come across. But then now, some of these sites will even let you go on the day of delivery, it's out for delivery. Oh, that's a good feeling. That's a good feeling. And then it's like, it's 5 stops away. It's 4 stops away. It's 2 stops away. You ever gone outside to meet the guy at the truck? Have you been standing out here all day? No, I've been watching tracking, man. I knew you were coming. I knew you were coming. What if you're standing out there in the driveway and it's 2 stops away, it's 1 stop away, he's coming to my house and he's right there and you're watching it come down the road, but instead of turning down your driveway, he just keeps going. And you're like, whoa, hold on, refresh, what's going on? And now you're watching what was supposed to come to you, it's going somewhere else. And you're like, where is this thing going? And what if you were able to track it and it doesn't go back to an Amazon fulfillment facility, but it's at a residence? It's at the truck driver's house. And the guy was driving past your house, and once he realized what he was about to deliver, he was like, hey, now, I want one of these. I mean, this is my size. I've always thought that I would look good with this. This would change this about my life, right? And so he goes, I'm not delivering that. I mean, what a fortunate day for me to have this just show up right here in my hands. It's right here in my possession. I'm going to keep it. What would you say? You would be on the phone, either with him or with the company, and you're going like, hey, you've misunderstood something. That package that you had in your hands, you had a job. You were supposed to take that package and deliver it. It was only put in your hands so that you could deliver it to who it was supposed to go to. Listen, guys, I hate to tell you this if you don't realize this. God is tracking everything. He knows every single resource that you have and every single resource that has come into your hands. And it's not his will that everything that's come into your hands stays with you. And there is a lot of stuff that he gives you. He gives you for the sole purpose of figuring out who does this need to go to. You gave this to me not to keep, but you gave this to me because there's something going on. There's something of a need. There's someone, there's some cause, there's some church, there's some mission. I gave this to you so you could send it where it needs to go. Man, if we could get a glimpse and stand a little more in awe, not out of guilt, but out of gratitude with everything that we've been given, and say, God, with everything you've given me, how do you want me to use this? I believe we wouldn't just transform a church, it would transform your life. It would transform your life. The Macedonian churches show us that this conversation doesn't start at the wallet or the bank account. It starts at the heart. It's a mindset. And as such, here's something important to grab a hold of. Attitude matters more than amount. Attitude matters more than amount. It's what is the heart of the gift? What is the heart behind the generosity? It says that these guys pleaded with Paul and Titus for the privilege. It pleaded with the privilege. Don't take this gift from us. Paul then encourages the Corinthian church. He says, see to it that you excel in this gift of giving. I got a feeling that you read that like I read that, and that excelling in the gift of giving means giving more dollars, increasing the amount. And what I'm telling you is it may include that, but excelling in giving is more importantly, excelling in the attitude behind the giving. Somebody just went, oh man, he just left me off the hook. He let me off the hook. I had a big number in mind. Now I can do a small number. It's not about the amount. It's about the attitude. Well, fine. Well, did you hear that attitude you just expressed? When you put it on the attitude, all of a sudden now the limits get opened up and the conversation gets broader. It gets bigger. 6 years ago, we did Open the Door. And we had a commitment card that was very similar to the one that we've asked everybody in our church to be praying about. 2-year commitment. God, what do you want us to do over these 2 years with everything that you've gifted us to do? And just like we've asked you to pray and engage and to ask God, what does that mean for our family? We asked then. There was an 86-year-old widow named Betty who set up an appointment with me to come to the church during a weekday because she needed some help. She wanted to fill out her card. She didn't quite fully understand what she was going to be able to do and made sure to fill it out the right way. I sat down with her, and effectively, here was her conversation. Pastor, I so want to be a part of this, and I want to give more. But I'm on a fixed income, and I don't hardly have anything. I don't remember the exact numbers that we were talking about, but it was in the neighborhood of like, I make a $15 a month contribution to Northview, and I want to figure out if I can get to 25. Can you help me fill out the card to show that? And there was a part of me like Paul where I wanted to go, Betty, let everybody else worry about this. This is not, you don't need to stress over this. She was wearing a weight. She wanted to honor God. She wanted to go in this initiative. In no uncertain terms, she let me know, you're not taking this opportunity away from me, young man. But would you help me fill this out? I thought I knew what Jamie and I and our family was going to do for Open the Door before I met with her. I changed our number after that conversation because I realized that my attitude was not her attitude. I was not coming at this from a perspective of, I'm going to give out of an absolute determined overflow till I don't even know where it makes sense anymore. I wasn't approaching the conversation the same way. It humbled me. It challenged me. And I am convinced that in a moment, in a season where we as a church raised $4.3 million over 2 years, I'm pretty sure the biggest commitment in the whole thing was made by a widow named Betty. She set the bar because she showed us what an attitude of generosity looks like. When we ask and pray and talk to you about praying, about what God would do in your heart in this area. I promise it will be a transformative conversation. I also can tell you that it's not just going to transform you, but generosity has transformed the lives of so many different people around us. Our vision and our dream was to be able to reach through giving a gift to the community, people that were far from God, outside the walls of the church, never walking in those doors. Through the center and through a new approach to ministry, we could be introduced to our neighbors like never before. And we stepped into that. And some of the stories that we have seen since that day have been remarkable. And I want to show you one of my favorites. It's a story of my friend, Ron. Check out this.
My name is Ron Klepper, and I've lived mainly two places: Carruthers, California, which is in the Central Valley, California, about 60 miles from Yosemite. I came to Indiana in 2011, and the health of my wife probably is one of the main concerns. And I had two children that lived here. And my wife, as you know, had a lot of health problems. My daughter-in-law is a nurse, and I had been a caregiver by myself for about 20 plus years. And I came back because I needed the help. And when I came back here, I went to work as a crop adjuster, so I was up and down 39 all the time. I saw the church, but I had never interacted nor come to it. When I got back here, having worked with horses my whole life, a friend of my daughter-in-law's found out about that, and she works with horses and children that are mentally and physically challenged. And she asked me if I would come out and work with the horses. As I did that, about a year into it, I met Jenny Yenitz and Amy Callahan, who led me to Teresa King. And my wife was in very, very bad physical shape. We had hospice at the house. And I told them, I said, I have to find a place to have a get-together because I have people coming from 5 different states, in-laws and things. And Jenny looked at me and she said, well, we'll have it at our church. And that just struck me. No one's ever done that before with me. So I said, well, that would be wonderful. I can hire a caterer. And Amy said, no, we'll take care of that too. Now that really blew me away. And I said, well, there's got to be a fee. I'll pay whatever fee you want. She said, no, there's no fee. Having never been a regular churchgoer because I farmed for a living, and I rodeoed, so weekends were pretty much outside. After so many years of living in California and dealing with 23 years of being a caregiver, and then having gone through all of that, and then the people here that were so giving to me and didn't know me, but I never expected anybody to open up to me like they did and offer everything. It touched me in a way that I don't get touched very often. I've made a place for myself in the church. Half the people that I've met at this church have walked by me and introduced themselves to me in the church. And the other thing was the coffee shop. Phil's Coffee Shop has been an absolute an oasis, for the lack of a better word, for me. And the people that work in there and the kids, I've pretty much adopted every one of them. I mean, when I came back, my wife was in the midst of passing away. She had been doing that for 20 years. God bless her, she had a tough life. And I had taken care of her, and there's times when that goes on, and I came here when she was still alive. You got coffee once in a while, but I didn't know anybody. But it was a place for me to kind of unload and get away. It's become literally kind of the center of every day for me. I have people text me and say, you didn't come to the coffee shop this morning, are you okay? I never had that before. So the people here, not only the people, the church has fulfilled a spot and within me that's, I didn't think it would ever get filled, to be honest with you. It's kind of revived me. I was a caregiver so long that it just, that takes up 80-90% of your day. And, there's times you want to walk out the back door and kick the neighbor's cat and cuss at the moon, and I did both, lots of times. So I could come here and I didn't have to yell or scream, people understood what I was going through, and they were very helpful. So the center is really the center of my life. It's given me, it's fulfilled something in me that I didn't even know was missing.
I love that story from Ron. It is true. He is here every day. Every day. And when we talk about a right-sized church is one more, that's why. That's why. And so there's room for a guy like Ron. And Ron's now fully immersed in the life, in the ministry of the church. But it all started with an open door and an extension of some generosity over where to hold a funeral, and a space to hold a funeral for his wife, hospitality surrounding the meal. And it changed his life in a dramatic way. It's exactly the kind of picture that we painted, hoping, praying for moments like that with the community. And Ron is experiencing a new life from this. And it's been a chance for him to experience God's grace in a new way. And I think grace is really a lesson from this conversation that needs to be grabbed, because as we read from 2 Corinthians 8, I don't know if you would have caught it, but it said, see that you excel in this grace of giving. Have you ever thought of giving as grace? Giving is grace. It's a tangible, maybe one of the most tangible ways to take what God has done in you and allow that circle to be complete. Generosity is part of how that grace makes a circle in your life. That circle is changed by many, but that circle started with Jesus himself. 2 Corinthians 8:9 says, you know that the grace of our Lord Jesus, though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you, through his poverty, might become rich. Jesus' entire mission was devoted to helping people find fullness and rich blessing in God at his own personal expense. At his own personal expense. And every person that he came in contact with had the opportunity to have their life reoriented. Not everyone did, but so many saw that life change. No one, maybe more prominent in my mind than Zacchaeus, a man who was quite wealthy in Jesus' day, but he was quite wealthy through ill-gotten means, through extortion, manipulation, theft. He was the kind of guy that a lot of people said, Jesus, you don't even probably want to mess with that guy. He personally probably thought, Jesus doesn't even want to mess with me. But in fact, Jesus sought out personal conversation with him. And while we don't get to know the details of their lunch encounter, what we do know is at the end of the day, Jesus makes this declaration: today, salvation has come to this household. This man's been saved. He's been made whole. What we also know is that Zacchaeus made a commitment to change the way he saw his life. And he specifically attached generosity and resource and money to that decision. He said, listen, there's going to be a change in my life moving forward with everything that I have. I'm going to give half of everything I have away to those in need. And I'm going to fix the wrongs that I've created. The people that I've ripped off, I'll pay back 4x whatever I wronged them. What I'm saying is his heart had so been transformed by Jesus that one of the most practical and first tangible ways he said things are different moving forward for me because I'm living for him is I'm going to reshape the way I see my earthly resources. And from this moment on, it's going to be a reflection of my love and my faith in Jesus. While you may not have spent a lifetime defrauding and ripping people off, you do have an opportunity to step into a life-changing conversation in the area of generosity, just like Zacchaeus did, just like the Corinthian church did, and just like the Macedonian church did. In fact, I'll use the Macedonian church as the grounds for this response conversation. It's a twofold response modeled after them. They gave themselves first to the Lord and then to his ministry. The first call for response, the first invitation is for those who've yet to give themselves and their heart to Jesus, to acknowledge their brokenness and their sin, to reach out, to cry out for his salvation, to be made whole, to be saved. If you'd like to take a step towards Jesus and saying yes, responding to him, making him Lord and Savior of your life, I would invite you as we worship here in just a moment to come join me over by this left side of the room entrance. Love to meet you, pray with you, help you take that step. If you've taken that step, but feel like that passion has waned, maybe this is a moment to renew. My heart is devoted to the Lord. Also, may this be a moment as we move towards Advanced Commitment Night, as we move towards Commitment Sunday, that this is also a time for us in our hearts to be stirred and asking the question, God, what do you want me to do? Having given my heart to you, how do you want my resources to be devoted to your mission over these next 2 years? I invite you into that conversation prayerfully, and that you could embrace the grace that God has for you. Will you stand with me? Will you join me in a word of prayer?